Good afternoon and welcome. This is the Marion City Council work session for Tuesday, February 20th. Um, First up, we have a presentation from Marion Leadership in Action. Welcome. And please state your name and address and then go ahead and present.
That mic on.
The mic's not on. Is it on? All right.
I'm Stephanie McHale.
Joe McHale, Marion, Iowa.
And Brooke Prouty with Uptown.
What?
Did hear you.
We still like you.
They could have done that without that guy's help out there.
So this is a project near and dear to my heart. Excited to hear the presentation.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor and Councilman, for having us today. We are here on behalf of the Marion Leadership in Action class, which I think you're all well aware of what we do and what we're here for. Part of our class is made up of Nikki Clayton from Hills Bank, Bill Hauser from Marion Fire, Stephanie Cruz from Innovative Aesthetics, Katie Lucan from Next Bank, Matthew May of Linmar Schools, myself, Jason Neighbor from Farmer State Bank, Brooke Prouty with the Uptown Marion, Marcus Ramirez, also of Hills Bank, Rob Schlitter with Marion Fire, Angelica Vanetta with the Marion Civil Rights Commission, and Sarah Washkler of Kirkwood Community College. So our project this year is to focus on the holiday lighting in Uptown Marion.
Okay.
And when we chose this project for the holiday lighting, it was very near and dear to Joe and I, as we come from a city, Kansas City, that has great plazas that are lit up, Crown Center with the mayor's Christmas tree, and just the need for Uptown Marion to have a bigger presence of holiday lights that bring people this time of year with the holidays. It brings people together. People come together, they take pictures, they celebrate, and they come and they spend money. And so we see that opportunity, and we have witnessed that opportunity for years. So in years past, we've always raised money for things like the banners and the banner lights. This year we did donate or contributed to the Christmas tree in Uptown Marion. So going forward, though, our efforts are going to be focused on raising the money for the holiday lighting.
Okay, and we have it broke down into really a vision of how do we get from A to D, and there's some baby steps that need to occur to get us to where we really want to be, to build that focal point for Marion, to build that place where families can go, take pictures, drop letters off to the Santa mailbox, take pictures with Santa, and really, I know we're comparing in the bottom picture the depot at Walt Disney World to the depot at Marion, but I think I'm going to hit home with some people on the council here, and I can go get Mary Lou and bring her back if you want some more reinforcement. But the Marion Depot is very historical to this community. Councilman Draper, I think you know very well of what that means to this community and the railroad heritage that Marion has. And we want to protect that, and we want to invest in that. In the next 5 years, the one thing that I think will be a constant in Marion because of the revitalization of Uptown, the redevelopment of 7th Street, the library project, is that depot. Okay, so that's our hope to be the starting point. We want to light it up. And pardon the pun, but we want to light it up like a Christmas tree. So we want to outline the windows, the doorways, the roof line. We want it to pop, just like the one in Disney World does. Okay, and then what we have is a vision moving year to year of how we can add to it. And phase 2 we envision being
Light up the art in the alley. What other pride and joy do we have of something that has taken years of blood, sweat, and tears of getting that put together, of the art in the alleyway, and creating a canopy across the roof lines of commercial white lights that, could potentially even be used for more than just during the holidays. So with that, I mean, the people that come and they gather and they take the photos and then they shop in the shops that are in Uptown and eat at the restaurants. And, you know, as we all know, as 7th Avenue becomes under construction and the main entrances come from those alleyways of just beautifying that area even more during such a special time of the year.
And then phase 3, actually phase 3 and phase 4 actually began as phase 1. But we quickly learned that the power infrastructure and that the modifications that are going to occur to this city presently in place, it would be a bad investment because everything that we would do would be either torn up or negated by possible development in the coming years. So phase 3 is we'd really like to light up the trees on 6th, 7th, 10th, and I believe what would be, and I think eventually a courtyard to the library. And then phase 4 would be to light up the park. We have the top vision. I can't remember the community in Minnesota, but they've got this beautiful park that they light up, and we feel that if we can start with the depot, get to the alley, then light up the trees that surround the park, and then light up the trees themselves, we're going to be a draw, and we're going to build a place for this community to come and celebrate the holidays year after year. But what that takes is it takes a little bit of money. You would not believe how expensive Christmas lights are, but we're starting small. We want to phase it in. And then my boss here is going to talk about our request. All my bosses are here tonight, by the way.
So our request to you all is budgeting for the banners that we have normally fundraised for to become separate line item from this funding, and also a yearly funding plan, potentially a line item for this fund to help keep it grow and go to streetscapes and gateways in our community. But also then the match of the $555.64, which was the cost of the footings for the lighted tree that we did have installed in Marion and in Uptown Marion in December. Plus then a match for this year's fundraising. We still have a week left of fundraising to go till March 1st, and so far we've raised almost $5,700.
Okay, so our ask of council tonight is that we please request council to give direction to the city manager and his staff to identify funds to match our fundraising effort, and then to possibly build a line item for this community to have to really light up Marion, to make it the focal point that it can be and will be. And I can't tell you enough, every one of our Christmas cards in the past few years has been either the mayor's Christmas tree in Kansas City, the plaza, something in that community, and we're here to stay. We love this town, my wife and I, and we want to be able to take a picture with our little boy in Uptown Marion and make it our Christmas card for next year. So thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, my wife would be glad to answer them.
Questions?
I have one.
Go ahead.
Are the lights a permanent installation, or is it every year they get strung up at a certain time and then they're taken down and protected, or is it one of those year-round?
Correct. The depot could be put up in October and taken down after the fact. The Artway would be something that could potentially be a fixture that would stay year-round, and the lights on the avenues could come down.
And for the more permanent, perhaps the alleyway, have you given consideration to the businesses to see if they would be willing to pay for any of that?
Yeah, we considered that, and we decided to push that to the next Marion leadership class because there's a lot of things that are going on in the alley with some ownership changing hands, with some businesses that are going to be coming online in the next few months that would be affected. And so we were really a little premature in that phase just due to the growth and the fluidity that's there right now.
I think probably a decade or more ago, we talked about this through the Culture and Entertainment District Board that we had, but we never had the vehicle to actually make it happen. And I think our thought at that time was that if we did the depot, just what you're describing, exactly what you're describing, that the idea would, expand. The business owners would see the idea, and then they would each do their own building. And I think that's a strong possibility, but you have to show people first, what it looks like and how cool it is. So I think that there's a strong possibility that the businesses, it would catch on with the businesses, but you've got to do the first one and show and make it.
And I think it would help with our fundraising when you really make that depot pop and tell them, how we're going to add to it. And I talked to Mike from Parks there. The committee would engage in building a schematic, have somebody build a schematic for Parks. So Parks could come in and have a plan of what to do and to really help them, because it is going to be a burden on them, but it's something that they were willing to take on. They were just looking for a little assistance in what it would look like to make it happen.
Paul?
Thank you for that, because I know like the fascia boards are 2x12s. We get too many nails and screws in those, eventually they're going to rot out. So it would be hopeful in my thought that the Parks Department, having fallen off that roof myself, it's no fun. The Parks Department has the equipment, them and fire, to go up there and put those in. And I would think that we might be able to leave those lights up there permanently, the high ones, because they're not easy to, that's a very steep roof to get up and down. But plus, the Parks Department would know how to put the carriers for them in there without damaging the building. And we just don't want anybody on that roof, believe me.
Amanda, can you tell us, we do have a little bit of money in the budget for this, don't we?
Yes, this is under administration H4. The reason that it's such an odd number, 5,892, is because that's what's left in the CIP for this line item. If council wants to continue funding this project in future years, you'll want to do that during the CIP development process next year. And it's really helpful, I think, that the MLI class, IA class this year did a multi-year plan so that council can really use that in the development of a multi-year CIP in planning for these expenses going forward.
Mm-hmm. So,
There's currently $5,800 available.
okay. That we specifically budgeted for this type of project? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Just so it's clear to everybody, it's already earmarked for that. So,
Yeah.
So is it kind of the request on a going forward basis that the city kind of match what you raise? I mean, is that kind of the formula we're talking about here?
I believe that's the vision. I think, once it builds and gets more prominent, I think there's the capacity for fundraising will grow because they're very expensive, and I think a match is a good starting point for the community to buy in and the city to buy in together. So yeah, I think my answer right now is yes. But do I think we might reach a point where we might need an investment from the city for maybe some critical infrastructure such as power? But those are things that are all going to be happening anyway. And if we think about them now, like the power plugs on the light poles, or when we rebuild 7th Street to integrate power into those, that's where the city, I think, can really make a difference in knowing, what the vision is and help our staff over here, when we do planning to know what that takes for us to go to the next step.
I have another question. What kinds of organizations give money? I mean, like, what are some of your larger contributors to this 5625 you've met?
Chamber members. So most of us that have given personally that are all in the class, plus have asked our employers and other chamber members.
But are you soliciting to Marion businesses? Are you trying to widen the net, so to speak? Because you mentioned buy-in, and I think it's a lot easier from a council perspective to allocate that annual budget item when you know that the community is also behind it by, putting in their own money. So
yeah, I won't speak for the group because I removed myself from the fundraising process because of my position, but they have a very aggressive list of people that they were contacting, from small businesses to large businesses, and the community's been really good. But I just think our biggest hurdle now is we got to show them something.
mm-hmm. Good, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you for all your work on this.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And I'll tell you, this was the easy one. You know what the millions and millions of dollars that I'm going to come out with you next is on. So. Thank you, Wife.
Okay. On to the finance agenda. Is there anything, there's nothing starred to be discussed by staff, but is there any questions on the finance agenda? None? Okay. Public service. We have a couple things starred. Ryan?
Thank you, Your Honor. I think item number 2, first one starred under public service. This is approving a 2080E agreement with the city of Albernet. Lately, just to give the council an idea,
Right.
over the past 2.
If I could interrupt you. To avoid any conflict of interest on this item, I need to turn the gavel over to Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you.
Good? Okay, thank you. City of Albernet, 28E agreement. They approached us here in the I believe last month, approached our Public Services Board, want to work out a cooperative agreement for infrastructure maintenance and support services. This is becoming a very common thing for public service. In the last 2 years, these are the entities that we've executed agreements with, mainly for distribution of commodities, whether it be bulk de-icers, fuel, and oil. They tend to come under our contracts. We tend to provide them cost savings. With that, we're working on, I guess, some other projects on formalizing this 20 agreement into something a little bit bigger. So for this portion with Albernet, they're looking for some equipment sharing services, which we have equipment rates established, as well as assisting them with some winter de-icers and things like that. So,
Any questions? I have one.
sure.
Is it our stance that we provide this to break even, or do we make money?
We charge the rates that are approved by the Public Services Board and the City Council. We've been directed to incorporate administrative fees into there to make up for our time.
Thank you. Anything else on that item? Okay, back to Mayor.
Number 3.
Okay. Number 3, this is amending ordinance chapter 105 of the solid waste ordinance. This is for establishing a commercial rate schedule within the city of Marion. If the council remembers, back in October, we executed an agreement with ABC Disposal Services. They've been selected to perform solid waste collections in this block here, identified mainly for the Art and Alley project. Since collections have been occurring over the last 2 months, we have a very good feel on what the rates are going to be. Our bills coming in from ABC as well as what they're generating, both the residential commercial places and the commercial businesses. So the proposed rate structure will actually lower the rates that are in the current ordinance. With the recycling that we put up there, we actually see less solid waste being generated. We're getting a lot more cardboard, I guess you could say, coming from those businesses. So that's going to save money from everybody up there. So under our current ordinance, we actually had it set up per container size, 20 per month, 82.50, things like that. Under the proposed ordinance, we would lower these quite a bit, actually. And so heavy commercial, that would go to 55 per month. That's going to be your restaurants. That's going to be your bars and things like that. Medium commercial, light commercial, those are your offices. And then your residential commercial, that's basically all the residential dwellings up in that area. We had some questions asked by our board, why at 18 per month when our fees for residential collections are at $14.25. Well, the reason being is that they have basically unlimited disposal options, so they can generate as much as they want out of their dwelling and get rid of it. So that's how we establish that rate. Compared to the city of Cedar Rapids, they're at 22 per month for residential. We came up with that rate. So that's what the board is proposing to the city council. Any questions?
Questions for Ryan?
So far, collections are going very well. We're going to plan on expanding those collections as soon as we pave the parking lot where the old law office is. We have some interest there from the businesses. So far, this is providing a cost savings for everyone. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Congrats again on the snow plowing. Hopefully you won't have to have the trucks out
Hopefully
anymore.
that's it. Yeah.
It's been quite a year.
This kind of about 16 operations. Usually we see about 30. So it's been cold.
It's been a big February. Hey, Ryan, before you go,
Yes.
I had a question from the department monthly reports.
Sure.
So the fleet division, I noticed that you guys service like 29 of our own vehicles between PD and fire department, et cetera.
Correct.
Right? Is that common? Do you guys just have more mechanics that can do this, the knowledge base? Does public services typically do
We do that, all the departments that request us, we do perform preventive maintenance on the fleets or heavy repairs, depending on what it is. And then basically, we do have trained technicians as well as our entire staff. Most of the equipment operators there have some type of certifications in AC repairs or whatnot. So it's really more of a department thing that we
And is
do.
that typical for municipalities? And I'm just asking because I don't know. It just caught my eye that
Some,
everybody comes to Public Works.
Some do that, some outsource it. When you get to this size municipality, it's very common.
Okay.
Some do outsource it, but I'm going to brag, with the staff that we have, yeah, we can do pretty much everything.
Probably save a lot of money, too.
Yes,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep,
That was
thank
it.
you.
Just caught my eye.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. On to police and fire. Let's see. Police. And then I think we're going to be also moving up a couple items from the administration calendar to under police.
The only item that I have on the agenda is a approval purchasing two 2018 Tauruses unmarked vehicles. It's for our detective fleet. Routine replacement. Low bids went to, Jungie Ford, the amount of $41,392.
Any questions on that one?
What color car should I look for, Chief?
Actually, we got yellow with black pinstripe for one. They're Fords. You do have.
Oh, yeah, I got that.
Are these prices net of trade-in then?
I'm so sorry, sir.
Are these net of trade-in, John?
These are, we typically, what we're going to do with the vehicles is we push them out to other divisions of the city.
Oh, okay.
Instead of trading them, and they're still useful, lifeless, and they typically go to either the different departments on the city.
All right, thanks.
Okay. So number 3, is that right, Amanda? Number 3 on the administration agenda, we'll discuss that now.
Yep. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for letting us move that up. I appreciate it. We're here to talk about the Esri software purchase we'd like to do. I'm represented here tonight along with Sunshine McDonald from the Police Department.
Is the mic? Hey.
I'm represented here tonight with Sunshine McDonald from the Police Department, Steve Cooper from Engineering, Namal Attar from the Building Department. Each 3 of these people are GIS experts, a lot more than what I'm able to talk about. So if you have questions specific to the GIS software, I wanted to bring them in, talk about it. So currently, we're spending about $6,000 a year for GIS software, and it's just basically individual licenses for staff within the city. When we brought Sunshine on, we started evaluating her software needs, realized what she needs is what they have, and then a whole lot more to give us some data analytics, and we're not doing any of that right now. We also realized that in order for her to be effective, we needed to basically empower the rest of the city with that same kind of software so they could collaborate together. So that's where that $35,000 comes from. Just for her to do her part would be $15,500. So we started looking at what that would be plus the $6,000 we're spending now. We thought we can be a lot more effective if we go ahead and move to what's called a small government agreement, which gives us all the software we need. Well, up to now, we've basically been creating layers and putting plots of our assets on the map. What this gives us the ability to do is just analyze that data and get useful information out of it. So I basically wanted to kind of put the group together, see if you had some questions about what we could do with it. We can elaborate on that.
Okay.
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
I noticed in engineering, for example, they use GIS. So will this be in addition to that? Will they come under that fold? Is there redundancy? How does that work?
It'll be an addition in the software, and what we'll do is we'll take the engineering department who does a lot of the work now, along with planning, and we'll be able to spread out the workload. A lot of people don't know that water's doing some GIS stuff, fire's doing some GIS stuff, but we're kind of all working individually, building layers and working somewhat collaboratively, but not what we could do with this. Also, what this will do, instead of just putting points on the map, we'll be able to take it and combine it with our other data sources, put it in a separate data source, and then analyze it and provide some reporting and some great information. We'll also have to, I didn't mention it, but we'll also have to spend some money on servers to support this, so I estimate about $6,000 cost for that.
And is there training included with this?
It does. It comes with unlimited self-paced training.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that webinars or
Yep.
something?
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then, is this a resource we'd share with other entities outside of this building? So for instance, what did I write? Schools or Medco, or if someone else had a need to use it,
Definitely.
we
Yep.
could.
Right now, we don't share that kind of data, but with this capability, we'll be able to put things out there, via the web. We'll also be able to start pulling in data from the county and try to cleanse that data and make it more compatible with our data. There's a lot of things we're hoping to do with it that they can elaborate on more than I can, but hopefully what we're doing now will become much more efficient between departments with what we can do with this. It's kind of a little bit of the bridge between the New World software we have, some of the other softwares we have, data sources, all together in one.
That's great. Okay. That's all I had.
Other questions? Any of you have anything to add or to share with us?
I think what I'm excited most about with GIS platform is that I think it gives our community the ability to be more transparent with each other in our data sharing, but then also providing, whenever we're ready, more information to the public, get citizen engagement. I think it's just a really nice open platform, and there's so many templates already built that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can take some of our data, we can take our calls for service, and we can put those out there and show what our community looks like. So that's what I'm really, me personally, want to see is how we can come together and make this more of a hub of our data.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? So we'd be approving this expenditure on Thursday?
It would only be for $35,500.
So
It's a 3-year contract.
3
so-
years, so annually we'd approve a third of it.
Correct. So the 106,500 is the full contract, but we're only paying for 1/3 of that this year.
Okay.
And the
And
current
that's-
licensing that was $6,000, we're about 6 months into that, so they're going to prorate that, half of that back to us, at $3,000 or so,
Okay.
offset a little bit.
Okay.
And Mayor, just to add, from a public safety standpoint, this is an incredible investment in cross collaboration between my department, water, engineering, for us to be able to look at like data sets from a emergency preparedness standpoint, to have GIS mapping. Sunshine's being a little modest over there. She was in charge of most of the flood mitigation mapping for the city of Cedar Rapids in 2008. The capacity that we will gain through this effort and through sharing mapping with fire, police, water, engineering will really set us up for some good growth and keeping our community safe.
Thanks for adding that. Good. And budget-wise, this is accounted for?
It's actually not accounted for. Lon thought we could do that through a budget amendment.
Okay,
This year.
so it's not currently in the budget. We
Not
need to
currently.
amend the budget.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, for the server portion, I may have a little bit that I, kind of depends on how much we use throughout the year, so we'll have to see how that goes, but I'm not counting on it.
Okay, so where would the funds come from?
It would just come, we would split it between the enterprise funds and the general fund, anything that's over that $6,000 amount that we've already budgeted for. In order to get Sunny up and running fully, it would be about a $15,000 expenditure. So if it didn't happen this year, we wouldn't be able to get her going in the police department. And so this is really something that we see as necessary to happen in the current fiscal year.
There is enough money in the cash reserves to handle this. It's just it's an unbudgeted item, so we'll have to amend the budget when the time comes.
Okay.
Well, I can understand it being a non-budgeted item, but since we just were putting the budget together a month and a half ago,
Yeah.
how is this overlooked?
Well, basically.
Sounds like you've been working on it for a while. This is
No,
not.
really, we haven't, actually. The timing of it was, I think, Sunny started in December,
January 3rd.
January 3rd, so we were already in the
Oh,
budget process.
So this issue just came up January 3rd?
Yeah.
Yeah, you already had your budget
Started
numbers put
January
together?
3rd. We met like her first or second week to talk about her software needs, and then we needed to meet as a city to talk about where we go, Because if we just invested in that portion for public safety alone, we're really missing the boat on the collaboration. Right away when we started talking, she's telling me, I'm going to need access to this data and that data. And I'm like, wow, these are the people that can provide that, and they're over here. So we really need to connect those dots.
How much on top of this annual fee do you anticipate the servers to cost?
I estimate about $6,000 a year.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of that's because it requires a Microsoft SQL Server licensing, and that's just kind of pricey. But that's where the data all comes together. That's a pretty important piece.
Okay. Other questions? Does everyone have the information they need to vote on Thursday?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we were also asked to move item 5 under the administration calendar up so that the people who are here for that item don't have to wait for the whole meeting. So who's going to discuss that one?
So this was added, I believe that it came in on Friday to the city manager's office, so it was added as a receive and file. So if council has any particular questions on the issue, we can discuss those now, but we don't have any particular presentation from staff at this time.
But you're here, sir, to talk about this item?
Yes,
Okay,
I am.
please
My
let
name
us-
is Jerry Brown, a Marion resident, and I'm co-chairing
Do
a
we need the
committee.
address, Beth? Sorry. Yeah, we need your name and address.
Sure, it's 1700 Banner Drive, Marion.
And please fill out that card when you're finished. Thanks. Okay.
Wasn't sure if you wanted us to speak tonight or not.
Okay.
So, long short of it is I'm co-chairing a committee to bring Fun Days, which is a parish festival, back to St. Joe's in Marion. Through our process of preparation, which has been roughly about 3 years, we were recently notified that because of the ordinance change to the for serving alcohol in the city of Marion, in 2014, that St. Joe's Parish is not zoned for serving alcohol. So that's why we're coming in front of you with a request to look at making a change to that ordinance or an exemption for it if possible.
Okay. Questions?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. You first.
Oh, I didn't see. So one question, I guess it's maybe more for Amanda. Why was the ordinance changed in 2014? What caused the change? Or I don't know, who can speak to that? Tom?
Tom.
Okay.
I don't know that the ordinance changed in 2014 that would prohibit the use. The ordinance has changed multiple times since I've been here, which is since 2001. And I don't think that Fun Days has gone on that I'm aware of since that time. But and I've mentioned this several times at the staff level, is I do recall in Chapter 120 that there used to be a provision that provided an exception for, and it was very specific, but it was a nonprofit organization for fundraising specific. And there was a section in the code that it did allow for that. And it was then, it's my understanding that a 5-day permit, because that's what you can get through the state, right, could be issued in accordance with that exemption. In looking back and working with finance and trying to find the track record, we've amended Chapter 120 multiple times over the years, and that provision just simply doesn't exist anymore in the code. So that's the code issue. Currently, when a liquor license is issued, they have to be in an appropriate zoning district. And we have provisions, as the council's aware, for proximity to schools and churches, and by virtue of it, although it's the one asking for it, it still falls within the guidelines, and it's also in a residentially zoned district. So it's hard to issue the permit based on the zoning without the exception in the code to provide for that, if you're following me. Mm-hmm. So, that's, I brought that to the attention, I think, of the council and staff internally, and I think, actually speaking with Councilman Randy about that. And I'm assuming that's how the question got back to St. Joe's. But I had no knowledge of the planning that was going on, no information regarding that to that point in time. But I did want to get it out to everybody as soon as I could. So that's the zoning issue that exists, and I think it's more a codification issue and a question to the council on how you would want to proceed with that.
Well, at this point, it's a receive and file, correct? And then,
Correct.
So the staff will look at it and come back with an
Yeah, I mean, I think there's ways that this has been accommodated in communities across the state in different manners. Every state has different liquor license rules and regulations. So I think it just takes some direction from council on or what they'd like to see. If there's a desire for the event or for events of that nature, there would need to be a code amendment. I think legal can probably provide some direction on how that is advised, whatever the direction of the council, how they advise that be identified. I do know in just a brief, quick analysis that Des Moines provides for an exception. I know some communities just consider it a temporary permit and provide for it. Anyway.
Thank you for that history. My other question, Jerry, if you could answer in your letter to us, you said that you met with members of the Marion Police and Fire Departments.
We did.
What was that
So,
outcome?
yeah, as part of our process, we've been working on this for roughly 3 years. Of course, this new information kind of came as a surprise to us. That's where we're at. We approached the city, I want to say last May, to find out what we needed to do in terms of paperwork, processes, that kind of a thing. And then, as we were told at that time, we need to fill out the city hold harmless agreement. They suggest we turn it within, or file it and turn it within 30 days. We felt, given the scope of our festival, we felt it was best to start earlier. So we did meet with members of the Marion Fire Department and Police Department back in November as part of that process, just to kind of explain to them scope of the event, security, kind of go through the general procedures of what we have planned. Pretty much most of that's what's detailed in the letter you have in front of you.
Actually, I didn't see
But
what
it
the
says
outcome
security.
was. You said you met with them, but it doesn't say
Oh,
what the outcome of the meeting was.
sure. Yeah, we found those to be very positive. They had a lot of questions of us, but if I may kind of summarize, just to say they didn't have any overarching concerns and felt that our preparation in terms of layout for the event, security that we're going to be providing, we're intending to hire off-duty Marion police officers, for example.
How many?
Yeah, that's kind of still to be determined. We're going to be working off advice from the Marion PD as well as our individual who's in charge of security. So we're going to make that decision with advice, I should say, from Marion PD.
And then my last question was, this letter was just dated the 15th, so you said you were going to reach out to neighborhoods.
We are.
So, okay.
We were going to wait till winter was over, but we're going to do a canvassing of blocks surrounding the parish. I think most folks, at least within our community of St. Joseph Parish, the neighborhoods are fairly well aware of the fact that we're bringing fun days back, but we felt it good stewardship to reach out and discuss it with neighbors, kind of go over some details, go over concerns, anything they might have. Parking probably is going to be a big issue with a lot of them, would be my guess. So.
And did fun days in the past, I know it hasn't happened for a while, did it have alcohol in the past?
It did, yeah. Okay. But it's going to be, if I may use the phrase at 180, it's going to be a completely different environment for serving alcohol.
The training regs were...
Yes, and we make reference in that letter because I think it's good guidance for us. We have to refer to guidance from the Archdiocese of Dubuque as to how to serve alcohol. We included those guidelines because they're pretty thorough. And for our perspective, it seemed pretty stringent, responsible guidelines for serving alcohol. That's why we included it, so you have a good reference of what our mandate is for serving alcohol.
So this was dropped, the fun days was dropped back in 2001, 2002.
That's correct.
Now you're bringing it back. Why was it dropped? And aside from wanting to raise funds for the parish, why are you bringing it back?
Sure. Well, it ultimately was dropped because of volunteerism and leadership. Just saw a decline in both of those within the parish, so the forward motion of the event stopped at that point in time. We're bringing it back because of an overwhelming request from our parishioners, most of them being older generation of parishioners who want to see this event return for all the positive effects of community. And so you know, Steve, our purpose for bringing this back is not as a fundraiser. It is as a community event. It really is to bring our community together, also to enjoy this festival with City of Marion residents as well. So that is the focus. Our pastor, Father Dave O'Connor, as well as our pastoral council, have set that as the focus for the event. It is not, the focus is not a fundraiser.
I think the two aspects I would have some questions or concerns about, and you may not be able to answer those tonight.
Sure.
One would be obviously what happened at St. Jude's a couple of years ago.
Yes.
So that brings up the security issue. So when I was asking you how many,
Yep.
that's specifically why.
Okay.
The second one is that I know in the past that neighbors have had complaints
Sure.
in the past about people tending to water bushes in their yards and things like that.
Sure.
So those are two areas that I think, being in the neighborhood you are,
Yep.
give me concern.
Sure. If I may, I'll try to address both of those.
Go
So
ahead.
let's talk about St. Jude's. We've actually worked in coordination with the folks who host the Sweet Corn Festival at St. Jude's. A couple, we think, distinctions. One, we're tactfully would say we're in a different environment in terms of neighborhood where we're going to be hosting this than the folks at St. Jude's do on their part of Cedar Rapids. The other aspect that they have been very clear, and they presented to our pastoral council and our pastor, is serving alcohol is not the issue that they have at St. Jude's. Steve, you may be referring to some of the youth issues they had in terms of some physical altercations and
Right.
things of that nature. Their leadership over there will tell us, and I thought about bringing one of them tonight to tell you directly, but said, serving alcohol had nothing to do with those events. The other thing, just to go over a couple security issues, this whole parish grounds will be, in terms of the festival grounds, will be fenced off. The area where we're serving alcohol will be fenced off. There's going to be a whole set of protocols and procedures for people entering, exiting that area, and how alcohol is served. So in terms of security, we're taking those recommendations from St. Jude's, who also received those recommendations from the Cedar Rapids Police Department. So there's some depth for how they came up with the procedures they have. In regards to your concerns about the surrounding neighborhoods and behavior, I guess, Steve, I would say some of that, I'm not naive enough to tell you that I don't think some of those things occurred, but I also would suggest that some of those things are urban myth as well. I mean, we can't detail things that happened 15 years ago, but what I can tell you is our approach, how we're going about the return of this event, is from a very conscious, responsible perspective. So our intent is to not see those kind of things happening. We certainly would go out of our way to, after the event is done, if we need to do some walking through neighborhoods, looking at picking up garbage, or whatever type of responsible things will be necessary to mitigate those kind of things, we certainly will do that. The other big thing to take into consideration is this event's going to cease at 10:30 at night. So alcohol will stop being served at 10. Entertainment will stop at 10 for both Friday and Saturday evening. It's a 3-day event. But in years past, these type of events had a tendency to go closer to midnight, sometimes past those hours, and that's not going to be the case with the return of Fun Days. So I think when you look at the combination of those kind of things, I would be encouraged to say I don't anticipate those kind of things to happen. It's not going to say it's going to, not going to, but we're going to do our best to make sure that that's not the type of atmosphere that's going to happen with the return of Fun Days.
Again, it was a popular event in the past. I recognize that.
Yeah.
But I think if it gets approved for this year, whether what happens the subsequent year, I think should be predicated mostly on how well you succeed in those two areas.
Sure.
So I hope you put more plans into place to control and minimize those.
Yeah,
Thanks.
sure will.
I have one more question. So the goal isn't fundraising, it's more community. If you talk to the residents in the community and the majority of them don't want this, will you proceed, or would you consider moving it to Lau, Thomas, Square?
Sure. I would say, Renee, overwhelmingly, and we're not maintaining statistics at this point in time, and we certainly, to add to that, are having the challenge of determining how many people are going to come to this event. Okay, so in terms of budgeting, we're trying to determine how much food do we need to order, for example, how many people are going to attend for the weekend. So we're guesstimating someplace around 5,000 to 10,000 people. Making that reference, though, the overwhelming response of people has been excitement, very positive for fun days returning. And that's not just been within our parish, that's been within the greater Marion community with people that we run circles with, so to speak. I'm a business owner. Rick McAllister's, who's with me as a business owner, our committee and steering committee members are all business owners. Just been very positive response. So, our desire to answer the second part of the question about moving to another location, we would obviously prefer to have it on parish grounds. It really allows us to focus on St. Joe's Parish, the good things we do there, welcoming people to come on our grounds. The other aspect of serving alcohol is to have it be as inclusive as possible. You know, it's been suggested 3 years ago when we started this that we looked at like a Sunday picnic. And we didn't want to do that for many reasons. One, we wanted to return the event closest to the scope that it was. But also we really feel that without serving alcohol, we are cutting off a portion of people that socially, that's how they enjoy themselves in a responsible way, obviously. So serving alcohol, having it at our parish grounds was part of the overall plan. But I really do want to emphasize in a responsible social way.
Okay, thank you. I will rely heavily on the recommendations from staff once more information is gathered and the meetings take place, but thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
And answering.
I have a question.
Okay.
Comment. Do you have plans set in place for the beer tent as far as security? What type of fencing around it? Because growing up, in Marion in the 80s and early 90s, I attended fun days every year, and I can speak back in the day it was quite easy for minors to get into the beer tent.
Yes.
So that's my concern.
I do not see that happening. It's, like I said, the event itself, the festival grounds are going to be fenced off with 2 secure checkpoints for entry. Then the beverage tent itself is going to be fenced off, and we'll have 1 entry point for patrons to come and go. There will be an entry fee for coming, so you've got to put a little money in the game to be able to enter the beer tent, so to speak, or the beverage tent. We're referred to it as a beverage tent because we're also serving sodas and water and other things. We're also serving food inside that area. There will be entertainment there, and that there will be active security and monitoring by off-duty Marion police officers, as well as the Knights of Columbus are going to be assisting us with monitoring patrons within the beverage tent. So, once again, going back to 15 plus years of this event, I certainly understand those kind of concerns, but I really do feel like we're addressing those. But going back again to our letter, the Archdiocese of Butte is mandating that we have to follow this set of procedures. Another thing should be mentioned, everything's just going to be single serving canned beverages, for example. So there's no keg beer, there's no pitchers, anything of that nature. I think that's quite a bit different than what used to take place.
One more question?
I have a question, and Jerry, it doesn't really concern you as much as it does Tom. As long as we are making exceptions or amending the city ordinance, I would like to have some consideration in eliminating the uptown as we have parking restrictions to any, if we were to have, as an example, although the Methodists aren't going to be there, but the Presbyterian is over there, if we were to have a high-class nightclub want to buy the Jiffy Lube site, under the current ordinance, we'd have a problem with that. I would like to have us look seriously at the entire ordinance when we are doing this one, if we could.
Yeah, in the uptown area, in the C2 district, the distance requirement is not, it does not exist. So that it's permitted uptown.
Yeah, I think
it's outside of that. That was one of the changes over the few years.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
Just one other item while we're talking about it, and I don't know what options exist to provide for. I just don't know. I just looked at a couple. I'm sure legal has a whole access to them and understands it a lot better than I do. The real issue that I see is to amend the code. We're talking about it takes time, and the timing on it's going to be fast approaching. I think we looked at it quickly, and you'd be looking at like the first meeting in May. Beth, you and I talked about it. I'd have to look for sure, but I mean, to get it to the point where if it is a code amendment, I mean, we wouldn't be able to get it fully accomplished till the first meeting in May likely. Just so the council's aware, just by virtue of public hearings, it is a code amendment, it's 3 readings of an ordinance, so just, I don't want that to be a surprise, just so everybody's aware. So we gotta take that into consideration as there's some comments, and I'm sure once legal provides us with some options, maybe they can do that quickly. Might be good. I know this issue is timely, so.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other staff want to comment on this?
I would just add from a public safety perspective from the police department. I'm neither for or against this project, but I would inform council and staff that from a police perspective, can we police it? Absolutely. The processes are in place to provide police service to events that occur in the community. We can put together an operations plan that assists with traffic control, with security points, with basic security for this type of event. Our experience there is extensive. What I can't mitigate is the community perspective and the impact. That's not going to answer to me. That's going to answer to the council and to the city manager. If I just have you rewind just a few months to the Tower Terrace discussions and the outcry that we had with the alcohol ordinance and even just putting a restaurant on Tower Terrace that were adjacent to restaurants. I can't mitigate the traffic of 5,000 to 10,000 people coming into a neighborhood. I can't mitigate the noise. I can't mitigate the impact that alcohol has in close proximity to a religious or a school as in code. And I can't impact trash and the impact of 5,000 to 10,000 people possibly coming into that neighborhood. So those are things for us to consider. And I want to be very clear. I'm not against it. I'm not for it. I'll police it. I'm just looking for the direction that this community wants to take on whether or not that event's to occur.
Yeah. I mean, I have some of the same thoughts that, it is a residential neighborhood, and the impact on the neighborhood is going to be the biggest thing for me. And I think, I know that people love it, loved the event in the past. We live in a different world where people are not as tolerant anymore, and they're not as willing to put up with intrusion and be as patient with intrusion on their privacy. And it is a residential neighborhood. I'm just trying to imagine 10,000 people coming through that neighborhood. I'm not, I'm always willing to be convinced. I keep an open mind about everything. So I'll see what the wisdom of the rest of the people up here is and what the recommendation of staff is. But those are just some of the things I'm thinking about right now. So.
Okay. Thank you.
I agree.
Okay. I think, is that it on this one? Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Jay.
Okay. On to parks, Mr. Carolyn.
Just real quick this afternoon, what's on the agenda for Thursday is actually setting the public hearing for utility easement with ITC Midwest for the areas. Let me see, I think. All right. So this is Hannah Park here, is the ball field. Here's their substation. 11th Street here, cemetery in this area here. So the red line basically indicates what they're asking for that easement area. A little over or just under 4 acres easement width. In most areas, averages about 100 foot is what they're requesting. We've had this back and forth with the park board back to ITC, trying to make sure that we've identified some concerns associated with the park around the cemetery, what the agreement would speak to related to tree removal, that type of thing. And we worked that out, been working on it for actually probably close to 5-6 months. So just wanted to really quickly show the city council the area of the easement and what's included in that. There would be that one-time payment of a little under $33,000 to the city for that easement area as part of the agreement. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. We'll also talk about it at the next council meeting when we have the public hearing.
Okay, questions? So Thursday, we're just setting the public hearing.
Setting
and
the
then
date
we'll
for the public hearing.
get more discussion on it at that time too, right?
We have to pay for our software.
Yeah. There you go. Okay.
Well, can I ask
Yes.
an unrelated question? The departmental reports, I had a question on yours too.
Sure.
The Olympics were on. I was reading page by page, so. So on page 62, there were the park board minutes, and there was discussion about the stipend. I just wanted to ask what the outcome was on the park board stipend. from the
Excuse me,
discussion. Yes.
I'm going to have to interrupt here.
Sure.
We got to stay on the agenda for this.
Okay.
So we really can't go off agenda on that.
So when is it appropriate if we receive the departmental reports to ask questions about them?
I would say if the departmental reports themselves, if it's not related to a specific item on the agenda, discuss it with the city manager, discuss it with city administration, get it on the agenda. I'm not saying it's not an appropriate subject for discussion. It certainly is. We just have got to stick to the agenda.
Okay, that's fair. I'd like to
Oh,
ask.
okay, well, it's not a start item. I'm sorry. It's in, it is, I guess it is on the agenda back in administration on item 7. It's not a start item, but it's not, I guess we, without moving it on the agenda, it's not on the agenda at this moment, but I'll discuss it later.
Okay.
This particular issue.
So here's my question then, and because I obviously want to follow the rules. If it hasn't been, I guess I'm asking for, because I asked Ryan a question about his report. So, and that was a quick one. I would like to, since we are informed of the minutes, have an opportunity at either the work session or the public session to be able to ask questions. So however that needs to be made, it just seems like, if we're getting the information.
So if, on that subject, if we're not voting, we can't have discussion that's not on the agenda if we're not voting on something?
It has more to do with the publication and notice requirements.
Okay.
That's why we have to stick to the agenda.
Later when? Right? I mean.
Well, it's on there.
Well, maybe we can.
And as I said, actually Amanda pointed out to me, it does appear later on down in the agenda.
Yeah.
In the
Right, I think it's under
administration
admin.
finance.
Right, but Mike was here, and I'm just trying to be efficient. But,
I understand. And this is one of the things we're talking about, by the way, in restructuring the agenda where you have multi-departmental things be a talking point in and of themselves to facilitate exactly that type of efficiency, but unfortunately,
right,
we're not there yet.
Got it. Okay, so then just let me know. I will hold my questions, but I have them. Okay?
You're all warned.
Thanks, Leah. Yeah, right.
Anything else?
Is there anything else from Mike on Parks agenda?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Amanda, can you switch the... Amanda, can you switch the...
Okay. On to engineering. We have a number of items starred under engineering. If there are questions on anything on the agenda that is not starred,
And item 3 should be starred.
Item 3 is not, but it should be?
Should be starred.
Okay. Okay. Proceed.
That comes up. All right, item F2 and F3 on, we'll have a public hearing on Thursday, but on February 13, we had 7 sealed bids for this project, for the 2017 Northview Drive reconstruction project. The low bid was from BWC Excavating LC. Mhm. So here's a summary of the bids. In your actual packet, you guys have the complete bid tab, but it's obviously too big to put up on the screen. So here's just a summary of the 7 bids that we received. So BWC was the low bid at 99.3% of the engineer's estimate. So we're recommending that we award bid to BWC Excavating. Any questions?
Questions? Okay.
Item 4 and 5, again, we'll have a public hearing on Thursday regarding the sanitary sewer manhole project. For this one, we received 5 sealed bids. The low bid was from Eastern Iowa Excavating at 106% of the engineer's estimate for $134,645.50. You can see the bids up there. Again, there's a full bid package in your council packet.
Questions? Okay, guess not.
Item number 6, this is the second reading of modifying the ordinance. So if you have the correct number of council members and you would like to, you can waive the third and do the second and the third during the same reading. This is just modifying the access fee due to an error when it was written.
Okay.
Any questions on that one? All right, item F8. So those of you that are aware, Lynn County is extending the Grantwood Trail from Highway 13 east to Oxley Road. As a part of that, they want to connect Grantwood Trail into the Waldo Rock Park. So the line that you see, this line here is the proposed alignment of the Grantwood Trail. And so all they're asking for is a 10 by 20 foot easement right here so that we can connect the Grantwood Trail to Waldo's Rock Park. They're not asking for any monetary compensation to make this connection. The Parks Department has done some work for putting a culvert in and doing a lot of the work in Waldo's Rock Park, and so this is just getting that trailway connected. So it's just, there's no money being exchanged, but in order for their contractor to work on our property, they have to have an easement, just like we have to have an easement to work on someone else's property.
The temporary easement?
The temporary easement, so once they're done with the work, it'll expire. It does not get recorded at Lynn County.
Oh. Okay, questions on that one? Number 9.
All right, F9. So there's a pretty lengthy memo in your council agenda on this one. Basically, as part of our Grantwood portion of the project, we have to hire a third party to go and do the plant inspection to monitor what the contractor's batching. And so typically, Rachi Construction hires Team Services, and we cannot hire the same company as they did because there's a conflict of interest if that company works for both. So we're recommending the contract with Terracon. It does work out to about 88.40 cents per hour. It's hard to estimate exactly how many hours are going to be spent on the project because you don't know how many times they're going to pour. You know, if it starts raining in the afternoon and they can only get half a day's worth in versus a full day, it's hard to know all of that. So we kind of look at the hourly rate as well as the total contract amount. So they're estimating about 102 hours. You can see it varies quite a bit from contractor to contractor just because they're making a guesstimation. But our recommendation is to approve the contract with Terracon.
Questions?
Yeah. So if they go over the 102 hours that they're anticipating, they're going to get $88.40 an hour over. So that contract won't be just for the 9,000; it'll be for more if they go over.
It could be for less too, but they, in the contract, they break it out of, you know, their inspector costs this much, a trip is this much, so that they break it down into everything that's going to cost.
So all 3 of them had the same project plans, how can there be such a huge difference in the amount of hours
Like I said,
projected?
so for example, let's say you start pouring in the morning and Channel 9 says it's not going to rain, and it rains because the meteorologists are never wrong, then we're not going to get as much production done.
Well, that's not going to happen 90 times.
No, but I mean, you're just guessing on how long it's actually going to take. It's hard to know, and they're not, at the time when we got these quotes, they weren't allowed to talk to the contractor about staging or anything, so they had to guess because we did not have the contract signed yet, but we need to keep this project moving.
Just seems such a big difference, but obviously the lower quote is what we go with, but.
I mean, we monitor it. I mean, we call them when we have to have them, and we don't do more testing than we need to, but that's part of the DOT process.
So I have a question to that. So do we, obviously, this is project specific and we'll go out for a bid and then we go with the low bid and that's always how we make our determination, but is consideration ever given to a vendor who we've used who underestimates all the time, or is that part of the equation?
So for engineering services, you can do it based on qualification. You don't always have to go with the low bid.
Okay.
So for example, when we did 7th and 7th roundabout, we actually hired team services. In this case, we're recommending Terracon because if Rachi hires team services, we cannot hire team services because you can't, similar to conflict of interest, you know, they have 2 masters that they're working for. So that takes us down to just 2 choices instead of 3. So all 3 of them can do the project just fine. This is soil testing and monitoring at the plants. It's not highly complex. It's just routine stuff. But we don't have the staff to be able to send them to training and to have 3 people dedicated to a project.
Okay.
Item F10 is our work program for this year. It's how many pages? 12 pages of projects that we're working on this year. Some of the projects you guys have already seen come in front of you. But this is basically our work program for this construction season. If there were any specific questions, most of these projects are on the CIP that were also approved by council.
Questions? Like Will has a question.
Go ahead. If I find it, I'll go.
Okay, we can come back to 11.
All right, F11, this is giving staff direction to go ahead and go out and find an engineer for design services for the Central Corridor streetscape. This is for 7th Avenue. With the potential library project coming online, we need to get moving on the design of what is our cross-section going to look like. Is it going to be exactly what we built on 6th Avenue? Is it going to have parking? All those different things we need to look at and actually get that process started. So what this does is give us approval to solicit with engineering firms, write the RFQ, and we'll get with other departments to write that to make sure we get everything that we need. So this is just the streetscape. So it's right-of-way to right-of-way. So are we going to have side paths, sidewalks, bike lanes, all those things?
We're finally talking about this?
Yep. And construction on 7th Avenue will not start until 6th Avenue is complete, but we're...
I know. That's what we've been told for a long time, but we're finally getting to the point where we might dream about seeing streetscape upgrades in Uptown.
Yes.
Very nice.
Change it 7th Ave. What are you talking about?
Okay. Any questions on that one? Will, do you remember your question?
No. I thought I had a question on one of the projects, but now I'm looking through it again and I'm not remembering it. So
Number 12.
For item F12 in the audience, we do have the person who fill out the permit if you have any specific questions. Give you a little engineering background with the diagram we have up here. So a floodplain, basically in the 100-year flood base and the 500-year. So you can see where the normal channel is, the blue area, the base flood elevation and the floodway. You are not allowed to put any fill in the floodway. In the flood fringe, you are able to fill, but you have to get a permit. And that's basically what they're doing. The city engineer is the floodplain manager. So this is actually just a discussion item. There's actually no approval from council, but we like to inform you guys of what's going on because of this fill and because of the property owner that it's being brought in on. So there's quite a few items in your packet. So that's kind of the basics of a floodplain. When you do add fill to the flood fringe area, you do increase flooding in the floodplain slightly. So that's something that has to be taken into consideration. That's why there's an engineering report in there from Hall & Hall. So the first diagram, and it might be kind of hard to see up here, the actual floodplain as it's drawn on the FEMA maps is this line, the green line. However, when they do this, it's very high level, and so they didn't have proper contours. And if you actually look at the red line, which is down here, this is where the actual floodplain line is. So you can see there's quite a discrepancy between these two lines. And so that's just one thing that in the letter they're pointing out based on the actual elevations when they have the actual topo. The other thing that they have to determine that's on the next map is there's potential wetlands down there. When you determine wetlands, you can't do it when there's snow on the ground or during the winter. You have to actually have the foliage up to determine if that's actually a wetland species. And so they're proposing to do this. This is safe area, according to the wetland expert, that they for sure will be able to fill, and this is area that possibly will be able to fill depending on the wetland determination. And so we'll follow that depending on what the actual wetland determination is. The fill that's coming in here is coming on the Bjornson property. Bjornson is not requesting the fill. The contractor actually went to him as a place from the Collins Road project. There's a lot of utilities that are going in, and it's a lot of excavation of material, and this is where they would like to bring it and put it. So there's no actual plans from Bjornson to do anything with this property as of yet.
And there's no decision for us to make.
There's no decision. This is
just
just so that you guys are aware when you start getting phone calls of why are there all these trucks filling in the floodway.
Okay.
Do we have any estimate at this point in time about how many yards of material we're talking about, what the elevation change may be in that area? Is there any estimate at this point on how much we're talking?
I'll let Greg answer.
Hello. Please
Hi.
state your name and address, and then when you're finished, fill out the yellow card for us.
Okay,
Thank you.
my name is Craig Tobin with Pierce Tobin Construction. I live in Marion, Iowa, 5150 Elderton Drive.
Okay.
The estimated quantity that we have is roughly 55 to 60,000 cubic yards of waste coming off the Collins Road project. That all you wanted to know?
So,
How much would that impact, how much would that raise? Is this the only area we're talking about this
Yep.
dirt is going into? How much will that raise that brown area? As far as how much would this change the elevation?
Well, the contours that, Mike, you can answer that, I guess.
The Hall & Hall letter says it would have a 0.3 foot increase in the 100-year elevation.
0.3 foot?
0.3 foot, yep.
That's
You're asking how much higher the water's going to go or how much higher the
Ground
soil level?
Soil.
I mean, it looks like about 10 or 12 feet in areas. I mean, it's a significant amount of fill down there.
Wow. So, just for our understanding, you said you refer to it as waste, but this is soil?
This is soil.
Soil.
Yeah. sorry.
Okay. Just so we're clear.
Contractor
And
terminology.
it's going to be coming from areas you're going to excavate in the reconstruction of Collins Road? Or
Yes, as we take off the pavements, then the subsoils that would come out that
Okay.
change the elevation of Collins Road, as well as the material that comes out of the utility trenches.
Is that soil tested in any way before you move it? I mean, what's the likelihood there's contaminants in that soil?
Slim to none.
Okay.
It's not common practice. It would be just like the material that you have on your Northview project that you just let. That when you put in the storm sewer, you're going to excavate that trench material. The contractor is responsible for finding a site to get rid of that material.
Yeah.
So we look as a contractor for the closest possible spot to be most economical. And this so happens to be the most economical place that we could come up with.
Okay. Other questions?
You asked them.
That was your question too? Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so there's nothing else for us to do, it's just you're
Nothing
just
else, no
informing us.
action
Okay.
required.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We do have a question, sorry.
When are we gonna start seeing the trucks moving and dumping there?
When the frost comes out of the ground?
So soon, okay.
Yeah.
I saw the
well,
sign
it would be,
saying.
it would be, it would be pending on approval of that, and then we'd have to get a major grading permit in that process. We have our NPDES permit, so we would be hoping within the next couple of weeks. And the project, it's not like all the material will come in a short duration. The project's extended out over this construction season as well as some of next year's construction.
I saw the sign on First Avenue in Collins saying construction starting on the 28th, I think it said, or
26 we're hoping for, so a little warm weather will help.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else on F12 then? All right, F13. So as part of the Lucor reconstruction project, we're talking about this intersection right here is Lucor and Hunter's Ridge. We have had a few citizens that live in this subdivision here that have complained that when we do this intersection, they're going to have to take Artesian and come out to 13 for that detour during the project. During that phase, the people that live in this section will also have to go north to County Home Road and get out. It is going to be an inconvenience. I've kind of laid out two options for you. Option A is build it per the plans. It's going to be closed for 6 to 8 weeks, assuming no rain or utility delays, and kind of describe how the different residents get out of that area. Option B, we did meet with the contractor, and we can stage it to allow east-west traffic for all but 2 weeks. And that's because we have to get utilities and paving work in there. So then the residents that are basically here would have an east-west connection, but those that are north would not have any connection, and they would still have to go north and then either east or west to get out of there. There is an increased cost in that, about $8,000 in gravel, an additional $4,000 in extra trucking time, downtime, additional traffic control for staging the intersection. And then the contractors also requested 8 additional working days because that's going to slow them down by staging the project. So because of this amount, this is nothing that I can approve. I have to get council direction if you guys want to go with this. I know I've probably talked to maybe half a dozen individuals that are in this area that are not happy that the intersection is going to be closed, but unfortunately with any construction project, there's going to be some inconveniences. When we reconstructed Winslow, those that lived on Winslow could not access their houses. They had to park in the adjacent sections that were not under construction and walk to their house. The people that live east of Lucor can do that same thing. If they don't want to take that long of a detour, they can park adjacent to the project and walk if they so choose, if they don't want to take the gravel road. So I guess staff is looking for council direction. I've kind of listed some of the things to take into consideration. Our recommendation is to do it per the plans, get in there, get it done, and move on. But ultimately, that's your guys' call.
And the condition of the gravel road is fine?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk to the county in the spring, but I personally drove it when we had some warm days this winter, when the frost is moving stuff around. You do have to slow down. There is a curve here. There is a curve here. The bridge approach isn't the smoothest, so you have to slow down a little bit for that approach. But I can tell you the gravel road that I drive on every week to go out to the family farm is in much worse shape than that is.
So it's not a safety issue, it's just a
Inconvenience. Yep.
slow. The construction that was on Lucor, a little south of that at Silver Oak, that
It's the same project.
right. How long was that area closed? That was closed for a while.
We started, I believe it was in August, and it went all the way through November.
And there was no Plan B that got shifted to for a more convenient way for people to get out? You just went with the plan?
For that one, it was a little different because there was enough connectivity with the other streets that everyone was able to get in and out, or we were able to, if it was one individual, we were able to build them a temporary driveway right at the stage line. Unfortunately, with this intersection, there's just a lot of utilities that need to get put in that intersection to be able to build it, so it's going to be down for at least 2 weeks in order to get that done. When we did Winslow, that was it was half a construction season one year and half a construction season another, where people did not have access to their front door.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything, in that being in Ward 4, Nick asked me, I haven't heard anything. You said about a half a dozen people.
Yeah, I've received phone calls. I know administrative assistants have, and I know Nick has gotten some contacts that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, one individual contacted me, but
So that's why we're bringing it before you guys.
Mike, what kind of time does that add for emergency vehicles?
So it would add 2 weeks to the project. So before you were talking.
Oh, I'm sorry, the response time for emergency vehicles to get there for ambulance, fire, police, to go clear out there and then back, what's that's adding 4 or 5 miles?
Yeah, I'll have to default to.
It will definitely increase our response time. But Mike spoke with me about this, and I say get it done as soon as we can. That's the only alternative.
How long did you say the detour to be needed?
8 weeks.
For 6 to 8 weeks, assuming no rain or utility delays.
Yeah, my vote would be to agree with option A, to get it done as quickly as possible. If I were to spend any extra money, it'd be to shorten that time, not to add more convenience in this circumstance. So I'd be in favor of getting it done.
Because it will add 5 minutes or more to our response time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lean with just get it done. If we start making exceptions every time we're going to do construction when we're a growing community, nothing's ever going to get done, and we're going to raise the cost of everything. It's only 6 to 8 weeks. If it was like 6 months or something, obviously, I think it's small enough.
It'd be different as well, too, as if it was August or September when we have a dry spell, but we're going right in, when is
This will be done about June, because this is the
okay.
second phase
I'm sorry, I
of the construction.
misunderstood.
Yeah. So there's one stage that we'll do to the south first, and then we keep working our way north.
That affects you.
So this will be the last phase of Lucor for this year.
I haven't gone through a great deal of inconvenience on Lucor while you were doing our section of it there. It's wonderful now that it's done, and I too think we need to get in there and do it, and get it done. It's going to be an inconvenience, certainly. An improvement of the size of what it is certainly worth that, I think now, that inconvenience. So.
okay. So do you need anything, is there a decision to be made here or anything?
No, basically I was just going to I was going to go with option A unless you guys gave me other direction.
So consensus is to stay with the plan. Okay. I think that's it for engineering. Planning.
on Thursday, there'll be a public hearing regarding the sale of an alleyway west of 9th, north of 7th, associated with Uptown Dental. And this we've been through this, and we've held the public hearing in the past. This is to correct a mistake in the legal description through publication. We have these from time to time, and so we do all the notifications, so folks may be here to speak about it, but we've been through the process one time. We're just really correcting a legal description in the alley. I just want to point out that I think this was done prior to some of the council members being on the council, so if some folks do come in, there was some conversation previously regarding this point of access. If you can see, the alleyway is in the red. Well, it's kind of a moot point now because the property's all been graded and there's development occurring, but there was access through the property, and there was a lot of concerns about that access going away. The point-to-point alleyway here, over time that alley shifted to the point where you could drive through. Well, when you get out there and survey it, it was a corner to corner, so there was some goofiness in how that roadway had kind of crept over time. So I don't think we'll have any of those issues, and I doubt if the folks show up, but I just wanted to point out for some of the new members that issue was brought to light before. Anyway, so the public hearing will be on Thursday, and you read the staff report. If there's any questions on that, please let me know. Some folks may actually come and just be like, I thought we did this already. So if, give me a couple minutes before the public hearing or however you want, just to elaborate on what's going on. This might help.
Okay.
Item number 3 is starred. We're going to remove that one from the agenda. We're not ready for that. And then the next item, I believe, is related to some matching funds, and I'm going to have Kesha Billings talk a little bit about that.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Just short of putting this up in PowerPoint, this is page 87 of the Safe Routes to School plan that the City Council adopted last fall. This was done in coordination with the Corridor Metropolitan Planning Organization, Brandon White, you may know him, Marion Independent School District, the City of Marion, Lynn County Public Health, Blue Zones, Iowa Bicycle Coalition. Everybody just kind of teamed up to get this plan. It's over 100 pages of talking about how we get kids to and from school safely. Lynn County Health Department brought it to my attention that there was a Wellmark match grant, and match stands for something. I'm not quite sure. just short of searching the text for that. The Wellmark Foundation allows up to $100,000 in matching funds. And so the nice thing about this grant is it allows the city to use funds or time already spent on the Safe Routes to School plan, or if or it's anticipated that this design for trail segments would be done in-house, so we can use that time, construction inspection, that time, all towards the grant. And so the thought is that we would apply for $100,000 from the Wellmark Foundation for construction, assuming that our $100,000 match is already spent in staff time. And so there's not necessarily any effect to our budget. It is staff commitment to this, but that's where we're going after. The grant is it's pretty simple. It's a 5-page grant that Lynn County Public Health is working on implementing the most of it, and then we'll fill in the details here and there. So the sections that we're kind of breaking this down to. So what you see on this is you've got Vernon Middle School here, and you'd have that's 14th, and then you've got over on 3rd, and then coming down South 15th Street. There's also a connection over on 1st Avenue Francis Marion, you get to it from 3rd Avenue, but there is actually an easement between a few houses along 1st Avenue, and it's actually a kind of a cow path through there that students actually use to this day. And so the full implementation of this line is not feasible. And so looking at some preliminary cost estimates, you know, over $150,000 for this. Wow. Just under $150,000 for this. You know, so our closest cost estimate that would be allowable with this would be to work on the segment from 1st Avenue down to the driveways to Starry Elementary and the high school. Continuing further south, that would be kind of a phase 4. I identified that in your council packets with the little ovals in there. Hopefully that didn't confuse you too much with too many lines and colors in there. But I felt it was necessary that this is not one all-in-one project by any means. But it is working towards implementation of the Safe Routes to School plan. And then I think additionally we continue to improve these corridors as well with greening, with any type of traffic calming that we can do on the streets as well. But that's for another day.
Did the newer members of the council get copies of that plan? Maybe we can give them copies. You do have copies?
Was it in this packet?
Well, no, it's a thick document, but maybe we can get them copies so they can have it.
Yes,
If you
we'll
wouldn't
do
mind.
some in-house figuring out what all plans you have and should have access to for sure, because this is one of many of the things that we have on our shelves that we look to.
Because we all got a copy when it was approved.
Yep.
So this would be a good thing for them to have to look at.
Can you clarify what this is really all about? I mean, you're talking about more trails. Are you talking about taking, for example, 15th Street and putting a trail on each side of it?
On one side.
So a trail just on one side.
Just a wide sidewalk.
Just a wide,
Yeah,
just a wide sidewalk.
Well, it's 8 to 10 foot wide.
Yeah.
And so right now,
Okay.
along 1st Avenue or along South 15th Street,
Got it.
there's about 16 feet between the back of curb and the right-of-way line. And so assuming a 10-foot wide trail, you'd still have 6 foot of green space to the curb. So that's not full build out of the right-of-way.
All right.
So right now, people are walking on the street?
There's sidewalks there.
Right, okay, so
But-
then it's what?
But with Marion, the nice thing about looking at Marion Independent School District for the Safe Routes to School plan is we were able to look at the entire district. Longfellow's a little outlier there. Unfortunately, we didn't focus as much on Longfellow, but there are a number of students that if you're at Vernon, you know, maybe you live down here, well, you're going to walk your sibling to Francis Marion, and then you're going to continue on. And so trying to make that, we've said it before, campus-type feel. And so allowing students to either kind of coordinate and go up one of the trail corridors, or just simply allowing them convenience of getting from one school to the other, dropping off sibling, so on and so forth. And so this is one aspect. I mean, looking at the master trails plan, we've got a number of other trails and on-street accommodations that we'd be looking at in all of Marion that would connect some of these networks. But this is specifically to connect the schools.
It's unbelievable how expensive just a little stretch is. It's amazing.
I could just say, I think that little jog you're talking about in the upper right-hand corner going south from Francis Marion, that right there, I mean, that would be without doing all the rest of it, that would still be a nice little addition to be able to access the school from First Avenue, because there's a lot of kids that go through there already. So I don't know what could be done if you had anything left over after you do the other piece, but that's a nice section that would add some.
Kudos to Ryan Miller when we were doing the plan. He goes, "Oh, there's
Yeah.
an easement through there." We're like, "What?"
I
So
didn't
we're
know there
looking
was.
back through plans, and sure enough, there's property owners that were back in the day already willing to grant the school that easement to provide that connection. So
The easement is to the school? It's to the school or the city to the school?
yes,
Yeah.
so Francis Marion sits up
Right
closer
there.
to Third Avenue,
Right.
and then behind there's a track
Yep.
that it connects right up into the track. Well, informally, because there's really no connection yet.
Okay. Other questions on this, or is this
I'm
making
curious
sense?
about the future of this. So if we get, let's say we get $100,000 and you use that, and you do one little section, what's the thought going forward with the rest of with all that?
Grants, and
Keep
grants.
going after grants?
Yeah,
each
and so
section?
we've been pretty successful with regional funds, federal highway funds that we get for transportation. Unfortunately, this is outside of that. This isn't necessarily considered a regionally significant trail. And so those funds are kind of out. Those 80-20 funds are kind of out, but we could definitely search for, or if Walmart continues to do this grant, search for other viable opportunities segment by segment.
If they give 50,000 instead of 100,000, just do 50,000 worth? Is that
It's depending on how much we want to break up at that time, and that could be a budgetary commitment at some point in the future as well. But at this point, we're intending to match that with all staff time.
Part of the idea with this too is that kids would be able to ride their bikes on the trail, on the sidewalk, rather than on the street.
Right. And
Yeah,
it's,
so make them wider and
yeah,
more
and there's
attractive to ride your bike
sidewalks
on.
there now. It's just emphasizing this is your clear
route.
path. Kind of a student superhighway.
Was there, sorry, more questions. So the cost to come the little section up by Vernon, was there, to get across 15th, was there going to be like beacons or anything like that? Because
And that, yeah,
is
that's
that part of that cost?
that's the
that make
assumption. So there's stops. There's a stop at First Avenue. So crossing there, that wouldn't be warranted. But yes, definitely crossing 15th.
I see kids running across in front of traffic all the time.
Yes, and beacons at that location. Anywhere in that location along 15th is ideal.
In my mind, that would be more of a spot to start, because you get a lot of kids going Vernon to high school. You don't get as many going FMI into high school, but to make it safer for them to cross 15th, in my mind, is more important than a wider sidewalk closer to the high school down south of First Avenue.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
That makes, understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah, okay.
We'll take this back with engineering. Again, it's, we don't necessarily need to have full design before we submit anything. It's just kind of the understanding we're implementing a piece of
I'm
this.
just throwing out there.
Get the money.
I'm just throwing that
So,
out there.
yeah, I'll talk with Lynn County Public Health and Engineering and try and figure best guesses, maybe smaller segments.
Yeah, let's get the money, and then we'll figure out how to spend it.
Kind of. Any questions?
I like that. Mike, have it ready on Thursday.
Okay, on number 4, number 5, I am turning the gavel over to Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, okay. Tom, number 6, please.
I know there's been a couple questions on this specific item relative to what came out of Planning Commission. You have a staff report that was presented to the Planning Commission in which staff was not supportive of the proposed layout for the Quick Star convenience store. And the Planning Commission did forward a recommendation to the City Council in support of it. So there is a little bit of a conflict. I believe it was a 5-1 vote in support of it. There was quite a bit of conversation about it, and I know the council had some questions on it. So I did ask Dave to come down. Dave's the one that's handled this case report and has been working with this for quite a while. And so I think it maybe allowing him a little time to explain the situation might be good.
Hey, Dave.
Was there any specific questions before I got started? I mean, the reports, this is just a set date tonight. The public hearing will be in 2.5 weeks. I can address any questions right up, or I can go into a staff report. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into it, just a set date, but it might be easier just for questions first, or...
Anyone have any questions to start? Okay, I had one. Hang on one second. I wasn't sure where staff was on. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
Comment about the issue about the number of parking stalls.
Yes, sir.
You indicated that traditional zoning would require 37 stalls. This is being designed with 21.
Correct.
Now, clarify to make sure the 21 is not including 10 stalls out by the pumps, right? So
Yeah.
this is 21.
This is 21 exclusive stalls. To the
Exclusive
store,
of that, right?
Not including, exclusive
Correct.
of the pumps. That's not allowed by our traditional zoning. Does not allow the counting of these spots.
All right, now help me out. Again, I'm in favor of keeping up with the guidelines that we have out there in general, but when I stopped it, after I read this, I was at the Come and Go in Marion, and I'm counting their stalls, and it falls right in this area of like 20 to 21, not 37, so have we made an exception for that Come and Go, that this is different?
No, it's all based on customer area of the store, and it was based on, the 21 at the Come and Go is likely based on the square footage that they gave me for the building. That's for any place that I can go counts.
Okay.
I think the Quick Start, I think they actually have a walk-in cooler that technically counts, where Come and Go does not have a walk-in cooler. So you can start carving out a lot of.
So this is a larger store.
Yeah, this is a larger store.
Footprint of the store is larger than the Come and Go.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the exact number the Come and Go required. They may have had some additional spots that they didn't stripe. Like this one, they don't stripe out here. They could be legal parking spots out here, but they don't stripe them because of the. They don't want to car parked over the gas.
Gas pumps.
The gas or the actual
tanks.
Tanks. Thank you.
Yeah, gas tanks.
So they could technically stripe that and probably get a lot closer. They choose not to just because they don't want it blocked. I mean, I could go park there and the semi has to wait for me. Come and Go might be the same way as well, but it's a much smaller store, and like I said, it's just how you. None of their coolers are walk-in there. No, I'm sure none of them are walk-in. They have a pretty large kitchen area in that, so it carves off a lot of non-public areas. Where this one's there's a lot less, or there's a lot more public areas in this building.
I've never seen them all full.
Why don't they put more parking spots, if they don't want to do it out there, on the side of the building where you've got truck loading zone? I mean, that's got an exterior door.
Yeah, it's an exterior door, but it leads into an interior room, storage room of the facility.
Oh, that is okay. All right,
Yep.
I can't see that.
Yeah, it was a hard. Yeah, that's all interior.
So that doesn't go into a public area.
Correct. It's not a public area there.
All right.
And we look to have designated loading spots, loading and unloading on site. So having it there, having it shown, yes, it eats up sites or eats up parking, but it's something we do want to see to make sure it doesn't conflict with movement around the site.
You good, Steve? Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, so a lot of the questions I have, I'll save for them because I think your report was super clear, but I just wanted to find out where staff was on two things. One was the dumpster. Are you okay with what they're, they want to, it says it shall have metal doors, and then, we specify a material. It looks like it's not exactly what we're speccing.
No, it's not. It's that Trex decking that people put on deck. So it's basically a plastic product. A lot of places use it now. The metal doors, I know Linmar had problems with their metal doors. They weigh a ton. The wind gets a hold of them. They become quite heavy to move. And the trash companies don't like them either because they're heavier to move again. It's just more work. I think this will be okay. It's one of these things. It'll have probably a wood look, but it will be a pretty solid material. I think we're going to be okay with it.
Okay, and it looks close enough.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with their metal door comment. I mean, they would be probably pretty unwieldy for a lot of folks to handle, to make them heavy enough to actually last. If you're doing some light metal, I think they'll get beat up pretty bad.
So that's a concession you're willing.
I think we can work with it. I think I'm happy with it. I mean, if in a few years, we'll just have to watch if it gets cracked or damaged. We'll just have to stay on them to keep it fixed. And if it fails miserably, then we'll just say, yep, it was a failed experiment or a failed product, and we'll stay away from it in the future. So.
And then the other question I just had for you guys was the way that they have reoriented the layout.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Well, and for the rest of the council, I mean, the original layout, make sure everybody saw that. This is the approved preliminary site development plan, just kind of giving here's what we think it will look like, here's how we'd like it to develop. So it's not set in stone, but they always showed a convenience store in this area. The building on the east side pumps toward Highway 13 to the west, and you have that residential house here, then you have the mobile home park to the north and east there. So again, what they've done is they have changed it. So again, the orientation's changed where the building's gone from the east side down to the south side. The pumps have gone from Highway 13 to the north. I had some concerns with it. They expressed the concern. I mean, their concern was trying to get the business part away from their homes where there's disruption, but they put the gas pumps with a commercial canopy on it to the north, so it's kind of like that's still a pretty busy, it's a business end of it as well. So I didn't really buy that argument. They did submit a lighting plan. We don't have lighting standards in Marion, but they did meet the Hiawatha, Cedar Rapids, and the Dark Skies Initiative, which is a national organization. They met the standards there, so I was comfortable with that. It's only an in coming from the north down, so there's nobody really heading out. Lights shining, headlights shining back out onto the home there. So that did help. So they're going to have to kind of come out, exit here. There's still some mobile homes here and I think there's a grass strip, actually, a barrier or a buffer to head on out. So, it's either you have the building there or you have the canopy there. They're both going to have some negative effects.
In terms of impact on the residents, though, north of there, is one better than the other? Because what the residents would have been aware of was the original.
Yeah, I think the best plan was to have it the way it was because it keeps everything kind of away from it.
Yep.
This one, you're just swapping one for the other. I mean, again, they run their models on how they can conceivably get a semi through there. I think this layout worked better for them. There was some concern. I mean, actually, in the end, we're supportive of the site plan. I think my staff report reflected that. There were some issues we had, but I think we worked through most of them with landscaping, but most of our concerns were just regarding the elevations and meeting the design standards, incorporating it into the development.
I just wanted to make sure I felt comfortable with the couple of concessions, because there are some that I'm not, but I'll wait till they're here.
Yeah. Now I think we're there on the site plan. It's just building issues.
Well, and then just for the council, yesterday we had a Central Corridor Committee meeting, and Jalissa Mormon, who was on Planning and Zoning, voted in favor, but said she was very frustrated with herself and the discussion and wishes she would have voted against it. She had a lot of reservations, and she said I could share that with the council. So it was 5-1 officially, but I think that there's some consternation over that. So
I'd just like to broad brush statement on this. I do want to have the ordinance reviewed from a legal perspective on how it was adopted, just to make sure that we're interpreting them as correctly. But I will say that one of the things that came up at this meeting, and I think it's important to know relative to this, but also just understanding moving forward. We've not had the issue of brand architecture really come up in Marion. Primarily because we haven't had a lot of design standard discussions in the past. We have our Central Corridor overlay design standards, and they have brick percentages and things of that nature. This area did not have that, and the PUD provides for the standards that we work with the developer on. But that conversation on brand architecture is a big issue nationally, municipally, everywhere. So that question came to this group specifically, and it was very frustrating. Their indication to the commission that this is their brand architecture, and if there's a requirement that it change, that it would likely not move forward from their end, which that's a pretty bold statement. And when you think about the design standards that we have and why we have them, they're a community perspective. But that was the comments made at the public portion of the meeting by the owners of Quick Star. So I think it's important for the council to know that that was a position that they were taking, And I only tell you that because that's very frustrating when you've got a community trying to make its own identity in dealing with organizations that want to maintain their brand. We all know there's got to be a little bit of a happy medium, but clearly that was a pretty bold statement. I think as we move forward and we start to see more commercial development, that's going to be an issue. And I just want to let the council know that that's a concern that we have coming out of that conversation. So you think as you drive across, and I hope everybody understands what I mean by brand architecture. Well, this is the building that we build. A good example, and I'm not being critical of it, it's just a good example. Fairway, for a long time, they had the backlit yellow band. And if you notice a lot of the older Fairway stores, and we dealt with it, they did a backlit band across the front. They've recently changed their brand, and I don't know if it was because of Cedar Rapids or not, but the First Avenue Fairway does not. I don't believe they have that. They have a more modern canopy per se on their building. But that was a discussion that we had with them when they came to town. Now, we didn't have anything that said they couldn't do that, so they did that. But that was a very distinct conversation. Was this is what we do. So, just so the council's aware that issue may come to light, the more we see franchise development. I tell the story quite a bit about when Walmart came in. Internally, probably not to the council very often, but they sat down with us and they got out their checklist and they just walked down a distinct list of things that we require or do not require, and then they know what they can and cannot do. And a lot of them are design, pedestrian accommodations, landscaping, lighting, a lot of the more what I'd call softer design standards that you'll see. And once you say no because you don't have anything, you've lost that. And so
And they're looking for the minimum.
well, yeah, they're looking for how they can provide. And that's the way they operate, and that's the way the business is conducted. And I mean, we did get a fairly nice Walmart. I'm not being critical of them. I can drive around the country and see where there's better ones that look a lot better, and I can tell you where there's worse ones as well. But I think that's just something that we deal with, and what happens is you'll get a call, hey, this is so-and-so, we want to bring a user in to have a conversation about site development standards, and then you walk in and then they put their plans on the table and say, this is the building and the business that we're looking to bring forward, and they ask you the question. So it's not like you have all this lead time to fully understand. So, and it costs them money, and that's why they do it. But to have the design standards in place is very critical for a city if you want to make sure that you have you're maintaining a character. So I just want to let the council know that was a pretty bold move at the meeting, and it's something you'll probably want to.
Tom, why don't we have those standards? I thought, we did learn a lot when Walmart came to town, and yet we talk about it like that happened yesterday. How many years has Walmart been here?
Well, we have the corridor overlay standards in place.
Right.
So we do have a lot of standards in place for developments, particularly as it relates to materials.
Right.
And in this area, there's a complete design standards manual. And the staff report that you received, we outline our concerns with what was being proposed. And that's why we made our recommendation, which was to not proceed with that. So I think I think it's pretty laid out in that document. I was just giving a couple examples of it.
Right, and I totally agree, because you can go to Phoenix, Arizona, and you would have to look twice to see that was a Walmart. They're just night and day difference.
Mm-hmm.
But if we had those standards, to some degree, they would know whether or not they were even going to be a contender to come into the community if we had some of those put into play. Now, other than saying it would be a lot of work to do that, what do we need to do to get to that point?
We actually have draft standards. We just haven't brought them forward. We've got some standards in place. Ideally, what we would do is what we have currently are overlay standards in the corridor. We would remove those and make the standards a part of the zoning so that there's not an additional overlay or this additional thing that lays on top of our zoning. So If you notice, when we do a rezoning, we condition it on some design items. And that's why Tower Terrace looks Tower Terrace looks nice, they're brick buildings, signage is low, and that's all worked into the rezoning. So we're working through making those a part of the zoning standards as a whole, citywide. So.
From a marketing standpoint, looking at this from my perspective and my experience in building grocery stores in the past, I mean, you would never recognize this as a facility that it is coming westbound on 151 because this is facing north in this proposal, if I'm looking at this correctly, right? Because the north side of this is obviously off of Hennessy, facing Hennessy. Yes.
Yes.
So this thing is almost backwards from coming into a four corners intersection like it is. It shocks me that they're going to lay it out, or their proposal is laid out that way. When you take a look, I'm a little confused on the elevation draws when it says left and right. I'm assuming right would be facing west?
I can illustrate here. This is facing north toward the pumps.
Okay.
This is the loading zone area, so this would be facing the future hotel to the east.
Okay.
This is facing Tobacco to the south. So the Tobacco building is kind of like right here in front of it here. That's why they dressed up this, because this is kind of what you can see from the highway as you're heading north.
Gotcha.
And then this bottom image is what is parallel to Highway 13. And so and these are all revisions from the original. I mean, this is a revision area, and this is substantially revised.
So the parking pylons against that building is no reflection because there is no...
This is the
calling it a green space, but there's really no parking there, right?
No, there is parking all along this.
I'm sorry, go to the bottom one.
Oh, this bottom one?
That's the one facing south.
Correct.
So therefore, according to this drawing, there is no vehicle entrance to that area, so it's kind of deceiving a little bit.
Correct. That's
if I'm
where you're showing
understanding
those pylons along that side there.
Yep, perfect. Okay, thank you.
I actually noticed that too, and I thought, well, maybe there's some reason for it.
No,
just
and
it's grass, and maybe they thought somebody would drive on it. I wasn't sure.
No, and I understand at what level and stage this is in. I am a huge advocate for, as well too, making sure we have the components in place that we need so that we don't have the discussions. If they're not willing to work with them, then don't waste anybody's time. But by the same token too, looking at it, it would be a great opportunity. So I understand, and I think we're going to see more of that as our build out for commercial on Tower Terrace, and this whole interchange here brings that to us. So thanks for what you've done so far to this point, because I know it's a lot of work, and all of the committees involved with it.
There was one other item came up at Planning and Zoning Commission, and it wasn't, I think they were a little concerned that we weren't supportive of the convenience store, and we absolutely 100% are. And I said in my report, I think this will do the most grocery business of any of the stores in their entire chain, just because there's nothing on the east side. You have a lot of homes, and those folks do shop a lot of convenience items, and this is a mini grocery store. So there's absolutely no concerns, issues with a convenience store in this location. It's actually a wonderful looking building. I stated that numerous times for anywhere else in the community that doesn't have design standards like this. And that was, I think they got hung up that we were maybe not supportive of the building or the use, and we actually are. It's just they have this design.
From what I understand too, their location on the southwest side over there, just because of its location, does a phenomenal average ring for groceries, which
I think
they purposely. And that's perfect. That's exactly what they need to do. There's no build out of a grocery store within 2 mile radius of that location. So naturally, kudos to them. It's a great site. Just a lot of questions at the front side of the whole process.
Yep.
So.
Absolutely.
Hey Tom, clarify for me to make sure I'm clear. When you talk about design standards out there, are you saying these design standards are in place or are in a proposed preliminary stage?
So when this property was rezoned, there was a design guideline presented with it, which was adopted as ordinance.
Okay.
As a part. So we reviewed it against it as ordinance. Now, it doesn't say the buildings will have parapet walls 2 feet tall, consistent with, it says they shall be, or they should be contemporary in design. And so the question is what they're proposing a contemporary design, and Dave outlined a couple other items within there. And, it's a pitched roof adjacent to a fairly modern contemporary design Tobacco. So there is some design perspective, I guess some perspective provided.
Judgmental.
What's that? Judge, yes.
All right? So it's subjective at this point.
There's some of it that is, but there's also some that is not.
Throughout the document, it does talk a lot about contemporary architecture. And again, I'm not an architect, but I can Google contemporary architecture, and I've not seen a single building that resembles even close to having a hipped roof like this. I mean, it's contemporary. I mean, I encourage you all, I put the link in the document on the staff report. I'll sure get you a hard copy before the public hearing so everybody has one. But the document, it leads a lot of, here's what contemporary is. It gives a lot of examples of some sketches, trying to describe the different parts of a contemporary architecture building, and this one just lacked some of those key points that they came up with themselves. So
There is also a material.
there's a material guidelines in there as well. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of shoulds, not a lot of shalls in the document. I think when we have the MEC, the industrial park, that one has like 30% of this material, 40% of this material. I mean, it lays it out very, very strict. So there's no design flexibility. You got to work within the columns. This one creates we want a contemporary style, but it does allow it to be a little open. It does allow a lot more flexibility of design, but again, it might be a little subjective. Is when are you getting past that, what is contemporary, I guess. And based on the DePaco, the 2 strip malls that have been approved, the hotel that just got submitted, this is very different than those other projects.
Well, and, so we're not being
And I can show you
overly
those, too.
prescriptive. They asked for the plans. They received the design guidelines
Yes.
more than a year ago. And before going to planning and zoning, they were advised by staff that planning and zoning and council might have issues with this because it's not in keeping with the spirit of, we've talked about this as a gateway. It's a slippery slope in my mind, and how as soon as you start making all kinds of concessions, so there's already concessions we talked about with the dumpster material and a concession about a relayout. How much are you willing to give before you draw your line in the sand and you say, we want you here, but we're going to dictate how this area is going to look, and everything else is going to go along with it.
How did we let happen at 35th Street and 7th Avenue when AutoZone ruined a good-looking building? Because they have some corporate plans of that's what their property should look like, same as this company.
Right.
I mean, that building is ridiculous compared to what it was, in my opinion.
That is a good example of, we talk about this a lot. You can require a building to be brick, 100% brick.
That one is not.
And not be extremely, it's block, so it's masonry, and they painted it. And yeah, if anybody's noticed that, hard not to notice, that's a difficult situation on how you regulate that in particular, but that's a brand architecture. Now, we don't have anything that would cover paint color and that type of situation.
And they know what works for them.
Yep. And most of these organizations are very aware of what they can do and what they can't do.
Yeah.
I'm used to dealing with the city. If they were building a new building and it had to be brick, they could build it brick and paint it just as easy as.
I think the big question comes back. They got their brand they're looking to protect and respect that, and they've worked hard. They spent millions of dollars designing it and using it. But one thing I did do is I wanted to really see who they are and how they can work into developments. And this is a quick trip. Quick Star's the same thing. This is up in Chanhassen, Minnesota. This is about an 8-year-old store. I'm not saying this is what we want out there either, but it just shows you how they can vary their design. Here's the backside, and that's all well and good. But what I like to show is what's the development around it look like? Are they clashing with it, or are they designing within it? Here's right behind it, so you can see they've incorporated the colors, some of the schemes from that development. Another example. This is a quick trip again up in Wisconsin. They have peaked roofs. They got a pretty overbuilt canopy. Very different store. But
did you pull these out and ask them, or this? And
yes. And here's the development it's within. I mean, this is the adjacent property. They are absolutely, any store, Walmart, McDonald's, when they've identified a spot they want to go into, if they really want to be there, I mean, they will work with the community.
They make it happen.
You can't do this in Pella. I mean, you just wouldn't. Some of these communities just have a look, a feel, a brand that they're going to protect. And this development, Marion's got, we're working on our brand, what we are, but we have a very specific brand out here, I think. And this just shows, this is not, I'm not in love with any of those designs. It just shows you that they can, when they do want to be in a community, work with the standards of the development or that the city puts forth.
So when is this coming? Is this Thursday? Then?
No, the set date is Thursday.
Yeah.
And it'll be the first meeting in March 8th.
Okay.
Will be the actual public hearing, and that's, I'm sure, when they'll be here. Quickstar and Quick Trip and the developer will be here.
Well, I think you're going to find out, a lot of people that I'm hearing up here, just like myself, I am in complete favor of strong design standards. We have been fighting this issue. I've lived in Marion so long, we've got such a hodgepodge along 7th Avenue that these design standards are absolutely critical. The city is investing millions and millions of dollars to develop 6th Avenue and 7th Avenue. So to back off on design standards, I think, would be a mistake. And my number 2 comment is, if they don't want to go in this location, some other convenience store will.
Well, 2 words, Steve. Reach higher. Okay. Anybody else with this? Welcome.
Yeah.
And again, I will get the hard copy out to everybody after this meeting, probably with the next packet. But it is, the link is on the web, or is on the staff report. So it's not a very long document, but if you haven't read it, it's links right to the web page. So
Yeah, it was really good, well put together. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay. On to administration.
The first
Number
start
2.
item under administration is to approve a memorandum of understanding with KTRO. This is for the former Squaw Creek Millwork Building. Steve Shriver was in a few weeks ago to present to you. It's for the Ecolips project. Right now they're in about 10,000 square feet in the Cherry Building. This will allow them to expand up to just under 36,000 square feet of office and warehouse combined. They're investing about $1.85 million in this project, and the gap is about $60,000. And so the MOU is proposing a TIP incentive of no greater than $60,000 over a span of 7 years. Do you have any questions about the project? Okay. We already discussed the next 3 items, 3 through 5, so that brings us to number 6, the discussion regarding the board and commission council representation. During the budget work session, this was brought up by several council members. You expressed interest in serving in some type of liaison role on some of our boards and commissions, and I believe a few have already approached Tracy on particular boards that you are interested in, so we just kind of wanted to open up the discussion here to see if you've done any more thinking on that, or if you maybe wanted to set a deadline for signing up for particular boards.
Yeah, I think our discussion was around the desire by council. I think most of us, or all of us, wanted to have more this connection between the boards and commissions and the city council, so that we're all on the same page in terms of the direction of the city, the strategic priorities of the city, and it's so that we know what they're working on, what things that might be coming to city council from them, those kinds of things, what issues they're dealing with. There's just kind of a disconnection, and I know that staff is there, and staff would inform us if there's anything but I think most of us wanted to have more of a connection, and so we thought if each person would have a group of boards and commissions that they would be the liaison for, and just maybe keep in contact with the chair. They could attend meetings if they wanted to, and just so that we have a connection. So, and a lot of it is for the boards and commissions, so that they know that they're part of a larger organization, and they're not just out there operating on their own, doing their own thing. That they are appointed by the city council. They're part of the whole thing here, and just so they kind of feel the larger picture more, instead of being isolated and just getting together once a month and doing whatever is on their agenda. That pretty much summarize it? Whoop. Yeah, so how people want to do that, I don't care. I guess we can get the list and have everybody
Thought we did.
mark off preferences.
I thought, I already did.
You did?
I don't
Okay,
know.
you've given it to Tracy or
Mhm.
something?
So, being new, I'm not aware, I know that there's the need to represent Marion, for example, the CMPO, right? Like, we need to have somebody there, and then there's the want, or what am I interested in, for instance, like you were saying, maybe a city council person goes to the P&Z meetings or something like that. So, I think before everybody can sign up and dedicate time, we need to make sure we've filled all of the need, and I don't even know what everything is. Like, I know we got something from Tracy, but I thought
It's the list of the council-appointed boards and commissions. I mean, I think that's what we have to worry about.
Yep.
The need things, I mean, we get those taken care of. I mean, they're either I'm representing the city, or if it's the MPO, we've appointed the 3 people that represent the city. I mean, I don't know that there's anything to really do on those.
And I think that commissions and boards that require city council member on them are already taken care of.
Yeah, I just meant to see, so for instance, I got an email from something affiliated with I don't know if it was the library board or something, because they thought I was still Dave representing it. And I said, do I need to go to this thing? And they said, no, no, no. So again, it'd just be nice if everything was in a spot, and I knew, I'm not saying I want to do everything. What's Will on? What's Kim covering? Like, where is everybody? So if I have a question about the niche you're serving the role in, also, that we're not all in silos doing different things, that there's like, here's everything Will's on, or whatever. I don't know how it's organized, but I don't know what you're on, Paul. I don't know what you're doing all day.
My question
We're
would
not on anything
be, which
now.
ones are more
I mean, we're
critical
just-
for us to have that connection with?
Need one.
I mean, there's a ton of them, and I don't know, all of us have time to
No.
jump on 5 or 6 more commissions and boards.
Well, it wouldn't be,
But-
because the amount that there are, between the 7 of us, it's 2.6, I think. So 3 committees, or 2 in some manner.
So there's like
for some people.
14 that need council people.
No, I'm just saying there's that many committees. I think it was 19.
Right, 14 committees, and so,
But it was 2.6.
okay.
So yeah, I think there were 19.
There's 18 of them.
18, okay, thank you. And so that would be, everybody get 2, maybe 1 or 2
You know,
people get 3.
some of us are going to meetings. That isn't to say we're assigned, but, I would go to all the civil service meetings because I sat there for 30-some years. And if that would be helpful and strengthen our position with them, I went through the hiring the chief. I'm partially responsible for,
Oh, jeez.
And sometimes they're just ad hoc, they just come up, like, I think the library building, meetings. I think, do you go to those?
What? Sorry.
Library building,
I went to I've gone to them, yes.
yeah. I mean, sometimes they'll ask, we would like to have a council member come to these meetings, and then somebody volunteers, and we say, okay, you're the person that's going to be going to these meetings. It kind of happens on an ad hoc basis.
Okay. Like I said, I just didn't see it all in one spot, the thing
Right.
Tracy sent. I don't
That's
think
her list
some of
of
those.
boards and commissions.
Right,
'Cause
some
we
of them
don't
don't
have
even
it there
exist
yet.
anymore. Like, I'm
Well-
on the trails one, I don't think like that one, or the art sculpture,
not
I don't
active.
even remember. Right. So I felt like maybe some new, like there's the airport thing now.
Mhm.
That's not on there. So we just need an update, and if everybody's name is sprinkled in where they're at, so then if any of us have a specific question from a council perspective, we know. I think it's just a one and done. I don't think,
Yeah.
unless I'm not articulating it well, I don't think it's a mammoth task.
And I'm not sure what list was sent out. I do know that we have the board and commissions all listed on the main page of the city website, and I think I'm counting 23 right now, not including city council. But to Steve's point, they don't all meet all the time. Some of those might only meet once a year or meet as needed. So there might be, different levels of necessity, I guess, or interest by council in in attending those. So I don't know if you want to take a look. Staff can provide you maybe with a little bit more information on each of them if you'd like more information on some of those that you're not as familiar with.
I think you sent us a narrative and everything with it.
Oh, okay. Yep, I
Tracy
don't think I
sent-
was on that email.
Tracy did, but I don't.
Tracy
we're-
did, so I think we
Oh,
got
okay.
everything we need.
I think they were all
Okay.
on there.
Information.
Yeah. Just have to have everybody go through and express their areas of interest.
Why haven't you guys done it?
I did it too, Kim. I think it was just you and me.
Okay. Well, good.
You guys have everything.
We're done.
We're done.
Is that what we want to do? Is just do we need to?
Just put what you'd be interested in serving on, right? That's what I did. I just
Right.
listed the
Just
3,
send it
4.
to Tracy, and then I'll coordinate with
Yeah.
Tracy and Amanda, and we can get it all organized.
Can I ask, so when you guys talk about this, I'm assuming it's a liaison, it's just attending the meeting.
Correct.
As some, yeah.
Silent
okay.
absorber of knowledge.
There you go. That's good. I only say that because once it's determined, I think it would be good if there was a message that went to the committees so that they understand that it's not like, oh, why is someone,
Right.
so we'll want to make sure that memos are at least provided that, the idea is to provide some feedback, just so folks know what's going on at the council level, what the committees are involved in. So, I don't know.
Okay?
That's fair.
I know talking to Nick too about this, he had a great idea too, where even if Randy's on going to the P&Z meetings, he once a month or every couple months he might go have coffee with the chair just to chat about what's going on or how the committee's working, things like that,
Yeah, I think
which I
that,
thought was a great idea.
I agree. And one other outcome I think should be some kind of reporting out of, what outside, if it's not something that we have staff in the room for. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what's the procedure for, so for instance, the CMPL, I don't know anything about it. I'm going to know everything about it soon, hopefully. How will I impart the knowledge of being a representative back to everybody? What is that procedure? What's that process? For committees that don't have staff in the room, I've never seen on an agenda a council person reporting out at a meeting that they were at.
Well, I believe all the committees should have a staff person that is working with them. So I don't think that should be an issue.
Okay. I got to look at the website. I'm a little behind on that.
Like I'm on BPAC, so once a month we meet, we get an agenda, and I can bring the agenda to the next council meeting if anyone has questions or if you want an update from, or if you have a
Just
question
if
about
it's
trail
right.
and you want to talk to me and not Kesha, then, you know what I mean?
A nuisance.
Yes.
one,
Okay.
Thank you.
Historic building.
Okay.
Like
I will
Four
send
Oaks,
some
Cameron
stuff to
Road.
Tracy. I did not do that.
The nuisance would be
Because I didn't think it was updated. Before you adjourn, I got to ask one more thing.
Mike was
before
on.
we're done with this.
Well,
Marion Holding Company Board.
you want to do it before the motion to move to closed session, or?
Yeah, yeah. So real quick, legal. Hi. So the departmental report, faux pas from earlier, I want to avoid that as well, but the receive and file reports, I have questions on that. Again, because that's part of the packet that we get, when would it be appropriate to ask those questions specific to our receive and file?
Well, that's part of the departmental report.
Okay, so wherever that lands, this is going to be part of that.
Yeah. If you want it to be a specific talking point, I guess what I would recommend is getting in touch with administration, getting in touch with Tracy, whomever, making sure it becomes an actual agenda item so it can be published in time so the public has notice that that's going to be a talking point. That's mainly the issue with having to stick to the agendas. These have to be published so far in advance so the public can be aware of it if they want to come and participate. So,
When are we publishing?
for
Monday?
example, the agenda for today was published Friday.
So if we get the packet Friday, that's impossible.
I know. So that's why, if probably couldn't get it in for Thursday, but if you wanted to have it actually be a specific talking point for, say, the next round of council sessions.
Yeah, and it's
get that
nothing
in.
in particular. Again, I'm going to keep chalking this off to my newness, but, I was looking through receiving files, and most things are taken care of, or they're in a state where, it's at the state legislature or something. But anything that was more than 6 months old, I thought we have a responsibility to ask beyond the little description of where it is, if it seems like there hasn't been movement. So I had some...
And I'm not disagreeing with
Yep.
that at all. All I'm saying is this relates to the publication and notice
Yep,
to the
okay.
public.
My question would be, are some of these really talking points that need to be on the city council agenda? Or can some of these just be addressed directly by a phone call or emails with the individuals? I mean, if I've had times where I've had a specific question that I didn't think was necessarily everybody here needed to know, when I just get hold of somebody directly.
Yep.
It's just my own inquiry.
Well,
So it depends on the magnitude of whether you think it's of interest to everybody or just a curiosity question. So I don't want to load up
Obviously,
the agenda.
well, obviously, if the council, wants to engage in their own fact-finding to be able to report to council meetings, that's certainly that matter. But when it comes to actually the actual council meeting, it's really important to stick to that agenda because that is actually published, and these proceedings are recorded, and those recordings are reviewed by the powers that be.
Yep. Nope, that makes sense. And I'll talk with Nick as well, but I appreciate that, Steve. And you're right, not every single thing has to come out in the light of day.
And Renee, we can star this at the next meeting and kind of going forward so that you all have the option to ask questions if you would like to. And if it turns out that you don't regularly have questions, we can stop doing that. So
Okay,
make
that's
it
a good
easy.
idea, too. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Sorry. Didn't you have another question? I mean, can't she ask anything about those reports because it's on there?
Well, that's getting a little bit into a sticky area. It's receive and file. It's
understand.
not.
Yeah,
It's not
they were being
discussion.
received and
Yeah,
filed.
it's not listed as discussion. It's not listed as public hearing. So, I would caution the council that you're treading dangerously to do that.
Yeah, and I don't want to tread dangerously. I think Amanda's catch-all of asterisking something for discussion if something needs it. Because
But
it might not every time, but then we're at least ahead of it, and we've published that we might.
So it needs to say, if you want something like that, it needs to say motion to receive and file and discuss the department reports. I mean, starring it on the agenda just after the fact does nothing. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
that's not published saying it's being discussed.
True.
The department reports are published on the website or something?
Well, why can't we
Yes,
discuss
they're
it?
included in the council packets
Yeah.
that go out
So
publicly.
why can't they be discussed?
That's what I don't understand.
Well, maybe we can get an answer on that next time.
Yeah, no, like
Yeah,
I said,
maybe you
nothing
want
is
to think about it
pressing.
and look at it some more. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, thank you.
We're all learning. Still need people to possibly sign up for Saturday at the library.
I'll do the 1st of March.
Anyone want to make the motion? Anyone want to make the motion for closed session?
A motion, closed session.
Need to read it.
Is there a
Oh,
second?
I don't have it handy,
Here.
so. Thank you. Okay, motion to adjourn to closed session regarding personnel matters, city manager performance evaluation as permitted under section 21.51I of the Code of Iowa. Tuesday.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to move to closed session.
Mayor, I have reviewed the subject material and do deem it appropriate to adjourn and review this in closed session pursuant to Iowa Code Section 21.5 Sub 1 Sub I.
Okay.
Go Indian
With
girls.
that, all those in favor of
No, we
adjourning
have to
the
do a
closed?
roll, that one has to be a
Oh,
roll.
I'm sorry, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, and it should be
forget this.
noted too that the city manager was okay with going into closed session for this. That needs to be noted.
Okay.
Mr. Draper?
Yes.
Ms. Setzel?
Yes?
Mr. Jensen?
Yes.
Mayor Abou-Osley?
Yes.
Ms. Gedalia?
Yes.
Mr. Brandt?
Yes.
Mr. Sternad?
Yes.
Okay, well,